I actually started my own company. So I do have a side business. Yes, I work here at St. Leonard's, and yes, I am their life enrichment director, which means I oversee the whole 810 residents that live here, and I have the most amazing life enrichment team that works with me that takes care of each one, and there's 2 of them sitting there for you. Maddie is our SDR, and then Kelly takes care of our memory care, and they're absolutely amazing. But I ended up going on to get 16 different certifications to understand how to speak dementia. So I train all the staff here, and I make sure they understand what dementia is and is not. And I do a lot of training outside of here, so I do offer up a brain boot camp class. And if you are worried about your own cognitive health, if you're worried about focus, memory recall, anything like that, I can help, because I'm actually a certified brain specialist. So I teach a course on how not to get this disease. And it comes based off of the Nun study, Mayo Clinic, and a lot of information outside of this country. Because in the United States, we have the highest number of cases of dementia, and here's what we know about the dementia that exists in the United States: 90% of them should never happen. It's lifestyle. So I teach you how to reverse a lot of the damage that you've done to your brain, and I teach you how to improve your overall cognitive health. So that's that boot camp. Then we have this class that I teach, which is like a caregiver, and I think we're going to change the name to Caregiver Boot Camp, because I'm not in here crying and whining over this disease. I'm in here explaining it to you and giving you tools and arsenal to have to go back and feel like you can handle this. And then my third thing that I do is I do dementia boot camp. And that's where I go in and I teach companies, hospitals, first responders how to take care of people who have dementia. So all of that started because Dad got misdiagnosed. And so I decided I've got to do something better. This is actually one of my favorite classes that I do. And this one is on the dementia journey. So this one actually is based off of a lot of caregiver support, goes into it, stages and whatnot. This one is based off of what to expect. Because a lot of people don't realize, how many of you have an actual diagnosis of what type of dementia your loved one has? You got an actual? Because saying that it's memory loss with or without behaviors, or saying it's dementia with or without behaviors, is not a diagnosis. Dementia is not a diagnosis. So how many of you have an actual diagnosis that has a word in front of it instead of dementia? So you've got one, you've got one, Okay, Alzheimer's is an actual type of dementia. So we have 120 types for the doctor to choose from. So saying that dementia, just pick a type. I mean, come on, we've got 5 parts of the brain. Help me out here so I can understand what to expect with my person. But what I'm going to do tonight is not narrow in on the type of diagnosis. I'm going to narrow in on the stages and what to expect. Does that help it at all? Each one of your people, the person living with diagnosis, is going to do their journey totally separate from anybody else's. This is not a one-size-fits-all type of training, but what I'm going to try to do is give you something as to what to expect. And I gave you things to look at down there so you can probably find your individual. Now, first thing I want you to understand is this disease is very, very progressive. It doesn't stay. So where you are today with them is probably the best they're ever going to be. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep progressing. How does it go? That's up to your person and the type of dementia they have. How long do they have? No one was born with a date stamp on the bottom of their foot, so I have no idea. But I can let you know that where you are, there's going to be some tips and tricks you want to use for that. So it evolves typically over time. It takes a while as it goes. I'm going to show you the Teepa Snow's gems. So how many of you have actually gone and looked up Teepa Snow after I introduced her to you? Come on, guys. She's good stuff. She's got all kinds of libraries and videos up there. She's got some really good stuff, and she's coming at it from your point of view. She's coming at it from the grassroots caregiver, not the clinician. She's not coming at it from that direction. And I'm going to go over the stages, and then I'm going to give you some strategies and some support resources, because if this feels like the hardest thing you've ever done, it is. Because no one's expected to understand this. So first thing I need you to do is forgive yourself and give yourself some grace. Deal? You're allowed to make mistakes. You had no idea. And you don't know what you don't know. So now I'm going to teach you a few things differently to try it a different way. Now, what I give you might not work for your person, so you're going to have to make this fit them. Make sense? How many of you ever raised a baby? Did the baby books match your child exactly? No. They were just basically broad stroke suggestions, and if it didn't work, what'd you do with the book? Toss it. You have to keep adjusting to your individual. So don't get frustrated by that. So dementia is a progressive disease. It affects memory, thinking, behavior, and daily function. It is not a normal part of aging, and you should never get this disease, not even hereditary, because hereditary, we're now finding out, does not mean it's a done deal. Just because you have the gene doesn't mean you're automatically going to get this. And this is what we're finding out, and that's what the nuns taught us, that some of them actually carried the gene for it, some of them actually had the pathology in their brain, but they never exhibited the behaviors that come with dementia. There's so much we can control here. But this disease progresses, and Alzheimer's is one type of dementia. The other types most commonly you might hear are frontotemporal. I think Bruce Willis is making that one pretty popular right now. Robin Williams made Lewy body pretty popular. That's one my dad had. And then we have other ones. There's so many different other ones that come from different types of strokes. Vascular dementia is a broad category of dementias, and that's the one that includes all of the blood-based dementias. The rest of them are chemical-based. Keep in mind your brain is fat and water and chemicals. So when those chemicals get out of whack, this is where it all starts to go wrong. So the loss happens gradually over time. The connections basically come apart. They lose the connections, they die, and then that ability declines over time. Now, one of the things I'm going to tell you is that a couple of things you can do right now to prevent those connections from falling apart is if you have any form of hearing loss, get it fixed. Hearing loss is one of the #1 reasons why dementia comes and kicks into play, because hearing loss actually forces the brain to lose a connection, actually forces the brain to have an ability decline. So we want to keep the hearing going. It's okay, I can get around it. Your brain is actually rewiring itself in a not so good way when you lose that hearing. The other thing is dementia care. This is a chronic, progressive, and terminal disease. They will die of this disease. And I always have people go, how? How is that possible? Well, I'm going to go back and ask you, what all is the brain responsible for in your body? Everything. It sends the signal to breathe. It sends the signal to tell the heart to beat. It sends the signal that this is hot, this is cold, how to walk. And like with my father, now this is one of the worst things I think could happen, he forgot how to swallow. And if you don't know how to swallow your own saliva, where does it go? He took it right into his lungs, and he ended up with pneumonia, and that's how he ended up passing away. So this disease is going to do something that's going to break one of the signals. Usually it's usually pneumonia, or it's usually kidney failure. One or the other is going to end up happening, or fall. Falls happen with this disease. So Alzheimer's Association stages the framework. Here's how it goes. Now, depending on who you look at, you might find 6 scales, 7 scales. Riesberg has 7. That's too complicated for you. So I love how the Alzheimer's Association broke this down into 3 very easy scales. And I'm going to show you how you can take it a little bit further to figure out where your person is. But we do mild, moderate, and severe. And the way the Riesberg scale ties into this, and if you've got a loved one living in our memory care unit, Kelly created something called the red, yellow, green program. So green is your early to mild, yellow would be your moderate, and late is your red stage. And I'm going to show you what those colors are going to be in those stages. But in the early to mild stage, this is like your mild cognitive impairment, stages 1 and 2, normally for a Riesberg scale. If you go into the middle of the group, and 50% of our population living in our memory care unit is right there in the middle. And these are our yellows. These are the pleasantly confused, can be somewhat stubborn, might not wanting to do things. And then the late stage, those are your reds. Now, late stage dementia does not mean that their body is falling apart. And this is what gets confusing for people, because you think of these stages with cancer. You think of these stages with other crippling diseases, right? They're not the same with dementia. This has to do with communication. So let me slow this down a second. Over here, early to mild stage, you have the communication ability of the average teenager, maybe 12 to 9 years old type of person. What kind of words would you use for somebody in that stage? can probably use full sentences, simple instructions, not too complicated, and they'll follow you. Middle stage, communication breaks down to almost that of a 4-year-old. Now, what kind of instructions would you use for a 4-year-old? You're going to have to break it down a little bit, go a little slower, give them some grace to figure out what you mean by it. In late stage, the way we communicate, this is not their physical capabilities, this is their brain's ability to keep up with you in communication. Late stage has the communication of a 2-year-old down to an infant. A little bit different. It does not have anything to do with their capabilities, it's the communication. Does that make sense? Don't get capabilities confused with communication, because with dementia, it's all about the way we're communicating. So early stage, these guys are going to forget names. They're going to misplace items often. They're going to be repeating themselves. They're going to need help with minor daily tasks. So a minor daily task would be putting away the groceries. Now you can say, can't you just put the milk in the refrigerator? Now you knew what I said when I said that, but how many of you made a mental picture of put the milk in the refrigerator? You envisioned a milk carton, you envisioned the refrigerator. But somebody who has this might hear milk and might hear in. They might not get the word refrigerator, or they might hear, can you refrigerator? And they walk to the refrigerator, opening it up to look for the milk, not put the milk in the refrigerator, because they got it a little bit confused. But they might be able to like, oh yeah, that's what you meant for me to do. I'll get the milk. They also have a lot more independence at this stage, and they can do a lot more with support. So maybe at this stage, you might have to go along behind him, make sure the oven got turned off, go along behind him and make sure a few things are done, or maybe it's just gentle reminders on this one. A lot of times it's just a reminder, a reassurance. Sometimes we just show them how to do things and they can follow along behind us. We don't have to do it for them yet. Along with this one, in this stage is where you really need to do your future planning. You need to figure out what we're going to have to do in case this gets worse, because it's going to get worse. And I don't know that you have 3 years or 5 years or 7 years. I don't know that. I don't know that a fall is going to make this go really fast. So this is where we're going to start looking for making sure we've got all our paperwork in line and we know what we're going to do. We've signed over POA, medical power of attorney, and we've got all that to go. This is where you're also, though, going to encourage as much independence as possible and maintain safety around them. So just like a 12-year-old with their reasoning stuff, they get it right for the most part. But how many times did you look at your teenager and go, what? Because it just didn't make sense what they did. So sometimes this can happen. And when I say safety, I don't mean locks on doors necessarily. I mean, no, you cannot give your credit card number over the phone to a total stranger. This is where we start getting confused and easily duped. Okay? So we want to make sure that we've got that whole safety barrier going around them. So this is where we also would use color-coded calendars and checklists, because these things work great. Now, what I would suggest is in this stage, you get them on a structured daily routine, because what you start now is going to help get them through the next couple of stages. It'll also stave off sundowners as we get into the mid-stage, because more structure you have in the routine, you're taking up what we call cognitive reserve. You're taking things out that they have to worry about, and you're basically putting it into a routine so the brain does not worry and stress. So that's this stage. Now, middle stage, there's a lot more confusion, mostly about time, because the hippocampal area now is starting to get attacked, and we start losing time and place. We might, and this is where we might fluctuate. Like maybe they're great in the morning, but in the afternoon they're confused as to where they are or when they are. They might think that they're in their 20s and then come back to and they're in their 60s, and then the next morning they wake up and they're perfectly fine as a typical 78-year-old. But that later in the afternoon they kind of catapult back. And so they do a lot of time traveling and time hopping. They forget that they've taken medications. So they might take them again. This is where we start getting very like, okay, this is scary. They might forget that they've eaten, so they eat again. They might forget that, or they'll tell you, I already took a shower and it's been like 10 days. Because in their mind, they just took one. So this is where we start losing confusion. And again, they're not doing this on purpose. This is not being done to purposely manipulate you. This is a disease that's causing those holes in their thought process. The other part is they have a hard time finding words here. Or we might start repeating questions to you and repeating a gesture over and over again. So when I say having a hard time finding words, it's usually a noun that we lose. It's the name of something. We can do descriptive words all day long. I can say that it's the white thing that has the And like, you mean the cup with the straw? And like, yes. Eventually they'll say, no, that's not it. Even though you've told them the right name, they might not know that that's what that's called. So we have a hard time finding words. The repeating of the questions is because we're losing our recall memory. Now, our recall memory is our shortest memory. It's the shortest short term you've got. So the reason they're repeating that is they can't remember they just asked you that. And that time frame gets shorter and shorter. It might be every 10 minutes they're repeating them. And it might go to every 2 minutes. And like, I just walked in the room and she's asked me that question 4 times. Here's a piece of advice. Every time they ask you, it's the first time they've asked you. I know it's frustrating. I get that. I've been there. But you're going to have to do something to keep your peace down, because as you start to get agitated and amped up, they're feeling that coming off of you. Because in this stage, we're starting to go from, I think I know what I'm doing, to I'm a little bit confused and I'm getting angry. Because we might start to get frustrated because here comes the mood changes. Here come the anxiety and the agitation. They can actually feel something's changing in their brain, but they can't quite put their finger on it. Now, they do not have dementia. They will tell you, there's nothing wrong with my thinking, it's you. You're trying to convince me I'm crazy. You're trying to convince me, because they're trying to justify what is happening in here. They feel things slipping away, but then they're going to project it as you took something from me. You took my wallet, you took my this, you took my that, because they can't remember where they put it. And I'm going to tell you something about the human brain. It's a little narcissistic. It likes to always be right, and it likes to always be in control. And when we feel ourselves slipping and not being able to retain, that is very, very scary. So we might get more agitated with you, or we might start to wander off. And it's not that we're wandering away from you. I got to go find something. And what I need is out there. And I don't know where I'm going. And an interesting fact about this stage right here is when they are walking away from you, they don't necessarily have the ability to retrace their steps and come back to you. We only keep walking in that direction. So this is where you're going to want to put some tracking devices on their shoes. I had to do this with my dad. Environment right here. So for you, check the environment and give them that daily routine. That daily routine needs to be locked in now. We need to be getting up at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time every night. All 3 meals need to be at the exact same time every day. Snacks need to come at the same time every day. You need to be watching that hydration intake. Sometimes you don't have to tell them to do it. They'll know to do it if you've got it on a schedule. I color-coded a schedule from my dad. He was an engineer, so he liked everything in order, so I kept it that way. But the minute I came off of that routine, it's like the wheels came off the cart. Everything fell apart. So I learned quickly, it didn't matter what day that was, we did it the same way every day, regardless of whether it was Christmas, Sunday, or a Wednesday. Everything had to stay the same. I had to keep his routine when it came to his showers, because my dad liked to take showers, but he would take 4 or 5 of them a day. I'm like, no, we took your shower. So once it was on the list, he had to cross it off, and he'd initial it himself. So he goes, all right, I know that's my initial. I did that, not me saying he had done that. Give them back their control. I had to look at safety planning. I had door alarms on the thing for me to know what door opens. So I looked to make sure. I let him do as much as he could do. And this is where stealth care comes into play. But I would just kind of keep an eye on it. And you guys have heard me tell this story. A tree went down in our backyard. My older brothers came to cut it down. Dad was the one that taught them how to use a chainsaw. He wanted to help them. And they told my dad, you just go sit with the babies over there. What? Here's a 78-year-old man. You're telling him to go sit with the babies? I'm not going to sit with the babies. So I saw that whole thing just because he didn't understand, why are you making me watch the kids? Lori's over there. I don't need to watch the kids. So I went into the garage and I got the smallest chainsaw I could find. I got his hard hat. I got his glass. I got all of his stuff. I handed him his boots. I handed him everything. He knew exactly what to do. He put the shoes on. He put the gloves on. He put the hat on. He put the goggles. He put the things in. He goes, what do you need me to do? I said, that branch over there, and there was a limb about that big. And I said, I need pieces about this big. And I stood right there and watched him. Muscle memory went in. He cranked that thing up. You could just see the young man come back, chop those pieces up, stacked them up, turned the whole thing off, put the safety on, goes, all right, I think it's time for a beer. Just keep an eye on them, but don't take everything away from them. Because the more you do for them, the more you're taking from them, and you're creating a sense of codependency that you don't want to do. You don't want to get there yet. So watch the safety, but supervise it. Late stage. This one's going to require all kinds of help. They cannot feed themselves. They cannot dress themselves. They cannot walk for themselves. necessarily. Some can, some may not. So like I said, these are general. So they're going to have help. Eating is definitely going to become a thing they do need help with, because it becomes complicated in the technique on how do I get the food from the plate into my stomach. I don't know how to do that. They might be able to watch you and figure out how to do it, or you might have to do a hand-under-hand technique and kind of remind their brain how to take the food from the plate up here. We might need to go from using a fork and a spoon to using just finger foods. Now think of this like aging in reverse. Your baby was bottle fed and then you fed them with a spoon, but then they went to finger foods, and then from there they started to use a spoon, right? So we're going to go backwards. We're going to go from them using a spoon to using finger foods to then you're going to assist them. Make sense? We're aging it backwards in reverse. And it's in our abilities, not in our intelligence. These people do not lose their intelligence. They lose their abilities to communicate and their abilities to do things for themselves. But communication now is going to start to decline because there's this thing called aphasia that's going to kick in. Now, aphasia you got two parts. And I know a couple of you went through our brain boot camp at Southbrook where we put the headphones on you and we let you experience what aphasia is like. So aphasia, receptive aphasia, means I can't understand what you're asking me to do. I can repeat the words right back to you. But repeating back to you doesn't mean I acknowledge or understand what you're asking me to do. Does that make sense? I can read, it says late stage full support needed, but I don't know what that means. So there's a difference. So receptive aphasia is where I hear you telling me that we need to get my shoes and shirt on, and you say, Lori, what did I say? Get my shoes and shirt on, and you leave. And I'm like, I don't know what she meant by that. So I sit back down. See the difference? Receptive aphasia means I understand what you're telling me to do, and I can follow through with it. But your words coming in are all scrambled, because in my head, I have voices back here of these kids playing. Over here, these women are giggling, and then there's this static going on nonstop, and I'm really trying to understand what you're saying because I really want to make you happy, and I don't like it when you're frowning at me, but I really don't know what you just asked me to do. So then I might get anxious and anxiety because I can't figure out what it is you're asking of me. So then when I go to ask you questions, it sounds in my head like a full sentence coming out, but you're hearing gobbledygook. You're hearing what we call word salad, and the words make no sense. And I'm trying to communicate with you the best I can with the words that I think sound like words in my head, but what you're getting now is nothing, makes no sense. So now we have a breakdown in communication. So now when words fail, what can we do? You don't have to use words to communicate. You don't. I speak with my hands a lot, and that comes from being a dementia practitioner. Because the one thing I do, and we just did a virtual dementia training today, is I would look at them like, are you good? What's this mean? Can you answer me with that? You can like, no. Are you okay? Are you hungry? Need to eat? Are you sleepy? Is your head hurt? Do you need the words? You can figure out what I'm saying to you.
For some things you do.
Yes, some things you do, but most things you don't. Because I'm going to teach you another form of communication, and it's a form of empathy. And it has everything to do with touch. And Kelly didn't know it, but she's going to demonstrate it here in a minute with me. Because when we get to this stage, the words are going to fail. You're going to get frustrated. They're going to get frustrated. But we can do things differently. And here's the crazy thing about this disease. They can sing an answer to you. And all the words fall right into place. And you can sing something back to them, and they understand what you're saying. Because once you start doing sing-song, the brain recognizes that and can do that. Song is not in the same part of the brain as speech. Did you know that? Speech is over here on the left side, and it gets destroyed pretty quickly. Song does not. So I can sing things, and I can sing something to you, and I can sing, you are my sunshine, you're my only sunshine, and you're going to start to sing it right back to me. So now we've got this communication going like, see, you're not lost. I've got you. I still have you. Because if you don't understand my words, I don't understand your words, we're both getting frustrated, and this person's getting really scared because I can't get to you. But if I sing a song with you and you're singing it back to me, now we're connected again. Does that make sense? So this is how you can bring them right back to you, is singing a song with them. So music therapy is huge when it comes to this. You're going to want to use this for everything. And again, find out what their song is. Don't be singing something to them like, why? I don't know those words. Sing something to them that they know. What we're going to do now in this late stage is all about preserving dignity and comfort and a lot of sensory. What the type of touch that we use at the end stage is called a mother's touch. I want you to think about how you took care of your baby and nurtured your baby. You were holding those babies an awful lot, right? You were cooing to them, you were singing to them, you were holding their hands, you were rubbing their cheek. And a lot of times what we'll do at end stage dementia is this person might not be able to communicate anything to us, but they don't have to. We're going to sing. We're going to go forehead to forehead with them. We're going to get very low with our tone. We're going to just hug them, and we're going to be holding their hand. We're going to use scents that are comfortable to them. It's just to let them know, you are not alone. I am right here with you. And that's all you have to do. It doesn't have to be a lot of words because they're not going to know the words. So, clinical perspective, dementia does not progress the same way in everyone. We've talked about you're going to have various stages. It's not linear. It's not. I would like to say, well, once you get to this stage, you don't go back to that stage. It doesn't work that way. How many of you right now, with the person you're taking care of, like Lori, they hit all 3 stages in one day? Because they're going to start out one way. They're going to kind of get a little bit worse. By the afternoon, sundowners, anybody like, oh my goodness, they lost their ever-loving mind. And then 11 o'clock, they're back. You're like, what just happened? And you really want to take it out on the person because you think they're in control, but they're not in control of this disease. This disease is controlling them. And they're doing the best they can. So it's not linear. It's going to vary very widely. This is where you want to have a lot of planning and doing what you're doing right now so you can figure out what to have. So Teepus Knows Gems. We're going to shift. And I want you to go to the page that has all the colors on it. And I want you to see this. I'm going to pick it up here in a second. But I want you to look at these because she came up with these gemstones to describe their personalities. And I thought this was awesome. So right now in this room, you are all sapphires, hopefully. Hopefully nobody's had a bad day and I've got you in diamond state. But right now you are all sapphires. A sapphire is a true blue person. What you see is what you get from them. They can speak it, they can tell you, they can have an opinion, and they can give it back to you. This person has a very healthy brain, normal functioning, flexible to change. So maybe some of us aren't. Adaptable. We have an optimal cognition. You can understand the words coming out of my mouth, and you can give them right back to me. You can provide support. These guys actually can help other gems. And that would be you, okay? Now, as this person gets older, they might have less peripheral vision awareness, but this goes with age. This is an age thing. So right now, you've got really good peripheral vision. If you're driving a car, you can see somebody over here that's coming up in this lane. You can see somebody over here. And the crazy part, and I want to talk to you about social vision for just a second, because we lose social vision when we have dementia. Social vision means that right now you can look at me and you know where you are in that paper down below because you can see this down here while you're talking to me. Social vision is you can walk forward, but you can see the ground down here. Social vision is you can have a conversation with somebody and know exactly where your fork is when it hits the plate. Make sense? We don't have that with dementia. It's one or the other. I either have to look at you while you're talking, because if I look down, you're no longer talking. Does that make sense? And when they walk, they have to look at where they're walking, because if I look up, what's going to happen? I'm going to stumble and fall. So let's go to the diamond. The diamond and the emerald, those two would fall into your first stage. So if we're talking about dementia, take the diamond and the emerald and kind of put those in mild. Those are your mild areas for memory loss. So the diamond is very clear. They're sharp at times. They have many facets to this person right now. This person is going to live by habits and routine. They like their routine. Do not break them of the routine. They like the familiar and they totally dislike change. They blame or dismiss errors on somebody else. This is a diamond. This is the early part of dementia. Do you guys remember this stage with your person? And this person can cut you to the quick and then turn around and smile. That's the diamond, okay? Now, I want you to hold your hands over your eyes like you've got scubas on, because the scuba vision is what we're talking about here. So they've really narrowed in their side peripheral vision. This person should really not be driving a vehicle, even though they'll tell you they can, because the cutting it to the quick, I taught you how to drive a car, give me my keys. So this person is going to use anything to throw you off the scent. They're aware that something's starting to go, but they're not going to admit that. Okay? Now the emerald, all right, this person likes to be on the go. This is your wanderer, this is your walker, this is your person that's sorting and doing things. This is the one that's kind of like, I need to be doing stuff. I'm over here getting into things, unpacking, repacking, organizing the closet, unorganizing it. They're flawed in the way that they think. These guys want independence and they want connection all at the same time. So this person is probably going to shadow you. You leave the room, they're going to follow you going, what are we doing? What do I need to be doing in here? So this person might actually shadow you a little bit. They're going to repeat themselves often. And this person is going to miss the details, meaning that they go to button up their shirt and they might miss 3 buttons where it might be on inside out. Know this person? Okay. And they travel in time and place. This is your time traveler. They're going to hop back and forth. They're going to be in their 20s. They're going to hop to the 50s, their 50s. They're going to become where they are and then back again. They're going to talk as though their parents are still alive and they might be dead. They're going to talk as though their daughter is an infant even though she might be 40. So this person's going to time travel on you. Now take your scuba and bring it in like a binocular now. Kind of bring it in a little bit. So now it's gotten tighter. You've lost your top and you've lost your bottom. So you see how we can't really see too great yet? Okay. Now the amber and the ruby are your mid-stage. Ruby is kind of going mid-stage into late stage. But the amber is definitely your middle of the road. This is your mid-stage dementia person. So this person is, think of like an amber, and you know how the amber, the stone itself, is kind of like molasses and it kind of everything gets stuck in there? So this is the person that gets caught in a moment. And they stay in that moment. Now, it could be a PTSD moment. It could be a good moment. It could be a bad moment. More often than not, it's somewhere that they don't want to be, and they get stuck in a moment. And this person might be crying a lot. They might be more cautious. They might be more curious about things. They might be getting into trouble with things. But this person also gets very focused on their sensory needs. So this person might not be able to tell you that they're hungry, and they're feeling the hunger pains. So then here comes a behavior. They might be thirsty, and they can't tell you that it's thirst that they're feeling because the mind-body connection is not there, so they get very cranky and angry with you. This person also, everything seems to bother them. Cold is too cold, wet is too wet, everything itches, everything's too tight, it's just too much because we're moving over from the left side of the brain into the right. So now here comes all of those emotions and all of that high triggered. These guys can have big responses to things, big responses. They're also going to copy an action, but not a task. So they'll be able to copy you when you pick the fork up and put it in your mouth, but they might not know now I have to chew and swallow the food. So they might just chew and pocket it and then put another piece. Does that make sense? So I can copy what you're doing, but I don't know the full task to finish it. You're thinking they've got it, they don't got it. And this is where we get stuck. This is the molasses part. They're going to resist things that they dislike, and they dislike everything. What's the favorite word for this group? No. Are you hungry? No. Do you want to go? No. Do you want to try this? No. Now here's what I want you to understand. The word N-O is not necessarily what they're saying. What they're saying is, I don't K-N-O-W know what you want me to do. So just like that 2-year-old, what did that 2-year-old tell you? No. I think that was my kid's first word. It was always no. I'll do it myself, or no, I don't want to do that. Because no gives me back control. Even though I need what you're giving me to do, I don't want you to do it for me. I can do it myself. Now, these guys also get objects confused. So this is where we talk about, I don't know what to do with this, so I'm going to hold on to it. So I'm going to give you an example because we get this a lot in our memory care unit. When the plate of food goes down and I put a fork or spoon next to it, I know what to do with that fork or that spoon because there's a plate of food sitting next to it. But when the server takes the plate away, that fork becomes a whole new object. And we put it in our pocket because we might need that for later because it looks important. Now, in all fairness, Disney made a movie with the Little Mermaid, and what'd she call the fork? Anybody remember this? This is a quiz in your, not, I'm going to quiz your skills now. She called it a dingle hopper, and she thought it was to comb her hair with. So in all fairness, if you're not sure what that's for, it looks pretty important, right? So we're going to hold on to that. So we lose what the object is used for when you remove it from its area. So now we're going to be hoarding things that you think, why are they walking around with a fork in their pocket? They think it's important, and they forgot what it's for. Don't try to take it back from them. Because if you want it back, you're going to have to trade them something for it. Because it's a precious possession now. So if you want it, trade me something good for it. And if you want to take it out of my hands, trade me something that requires 2 hands to hold what you're about to give me. Because if I'm giving you something that takes 2 hands, what are you going to do with the fork in your hand? Lay it down so you can take this. Don't take anything from them. This is not going to work with these guys. They are stubborn, and you are not going to win. You are not going to get your way. Think of the 2-year-old here, okay? Now let's go into the ruby. The ruby is incredibly strong red. These guys are like, they retain their strength, so they can squeeze, they can pull, they can tug, they can hit. They're still strong, but they do not have the skill set left now. So these guys can't do the buttons. They can't do the things that they need to do. A lot of big, strong actions with these guys. They keep their rhythm so they can sing with you and they can dance. They know all of that stuff, but they also notice that the tone of voice that you're talking to them with. Now we're moved over to the right side of the brain completely, and we are very emotionally sensitive. You come walking in a room with the attitude, guess what they're going to give you back? And it might not even be towards them. Maybe you just got off the phone with a bill collector and you're so irritated because they double billed you and like, oh, you come walking in and that energy coming off of you is all they feel, and they're going to push it back at you. Because like, nope, I'm not playing that game. So they notice your emotions very, very fast. Or they'll go the other way. They cry because they think you're mad at them. They failed you. I'm so sorry. And they keep apologizing and they're crying all the time because they can't quite understand. They cannot regulate their own emotions. So you're going to have to be very careful here. You're going to have to make sure that your emotions are where you want them to be. It's just like I was telling my daughter. She has a puppy that she's raising. I'm like, your emotions set the entire stage. You want that dog calm? You need to be calm. So if you want a human being in front of you calm, you need to be calm. Because telling a human being to calm down has never worked in the history of time. Does it work on you? No. So we're not going to do that. We're going to come in and be calm because these guys are feeding off of it. Now take your vision. So we've gone from scuba, we've gone to binocular. Now I just want you to take one eye, close the other eye, and squeeze it all the way in. This is what they have left. That's their entire vision. So if you are not right in front of their face, and I don't mean like confronting them, I mean if they're not eyes locked on your eyes, you don't have them. Because they're hearing all kinds of chaos and confusion around them. They're seeing blinking lights. They're very limited on what they can see. And communication, half of what you hear is what you can see. And what you can see is what you can hear. Does that make sense? This is why you all turn down the radio when you're looking for a street sign. You're giggling because you know you're guilty of it. And then the pearl. This is the last one. This person is in their shell. They're in there, but they're hidden. This is end stage. They are totally ruled by reflexes. Everything is a reflex at this point. Think like of a baby. They are very, very short moments of connection with you where their eyes will light up, and it might usually be through touch or song. This person will actually be able to sing with you. They'll know all the words, even though they cannot speak any other words whatsoever. This person might be able to dance with you. My dad could actually get up and dance, which was crazy because he had no other movements that he could do. But if I put music on, he could dance, he could whistle, and he could sing. The music went off, he just laid in the bed. That's all he could do. These guys are mostly immobile because they cannot remember how to walk. They cannot remember how to control their trunk. And they will express all the unmet needs with total distress. So think of a baby. Baby couldn't use words. How did the baby tell you it needed something? Cried. So this is what we're going to do. These guys react very, very strongly to touch. So you want to make sure you're using the right touch. They can recognize familiar things and things that they like. But when I say recognize, they won't know your name. They don't need to know your name. That's important to you, not them. They know that that's a familiar face that I trust. That's a familiar face that I love. That's all they need to know. Your name is only important to you. Your relationship with them is only important to you. What they need to know is you're someone that they can trust. Stop telling them I'm your wife. Stop telling them I'm your daughter. Because I just had a gentleman ask me this the other day. He goes, she keeps looking for me and I'm right in front of her. I'm like, all right, how old were you when you married her? 21. Do you look like you did when you were 21 at 81? He goes, well, hell no. And I'm like, which is why she's confused. She's looking for the 21-year-old version of you. And buddy, you saying over and over again, it's me. And he goes, yeah, she thinks I'm her dad playing a joke on her. And I'm like, yeah, I would too. How many of you in here, and I've got a 20-something over here, Maddie, you truly believe you're in your 20s. If you looked in the mirror and you saw an 82-year-old looking back at you, how would you feel? Scared. And there we have it. They don't know their current age. I just told you they're time traveling. Most of them go back to living in their core memories. Core memories are made between the ages of 8 and 21. This is where we're going to go. Now, if you knew them then, lucky you. But if you did not know them then, they don't know you like that. So you're going to change. You're going to shift in their memories. And this is okay, because you're going to shift into somebody else. They're going to reclaim you as somebody else in their life that was important to them. I'm going to give you an example. I am my father's daughter, but with the dementia, I became his wife. I became his mother. Now, honestly, being my dad's mom was great. I could get him to get in the shower and get back out of the shower. I could get him to do anything I needed him to do as his mom, because I could use the mom voice and use his full name. I did not care that he could not remember my name. I just needed him to know that I was a woman in his life that loved him, that he could trust. Make sense? And when I became my mom, that got interesting, because he was having all these weird arguments with me, and it felt like I was arguing with my husband. And then as he got younger in his mind, I shift, and I became his mother. So it's okay, guys. It's absolutely all right that they forget who you are, but they're still wanting your energy, because they're recognizing your light and your energy as someone they can trust. And that is the key to this. That's the biggest thing I can give you. So let's walk through what you need to do. So for that sapphire, let's respond to their vision. So you're going to stay in a visual field for them. They've got a pretty nice visual field. They can all the way around. You're going to stay in their visual field. You can use any type of supportive stance with this person, and they're going to be acceptive of it. This is talking to another person in the room right now. We can stay in their field. You're going to respond to their language. You ask permission to reduce background noise if they're struggling, so they can hear you. And when you touch them, this one does a handshake. So you always ask everyone for permission to touch them. I don't care if you're married to them. I don't care if you've lived with them for 65 years. When you go into their world with limited vision, you have to ask for permission to touch them, because otherwise you could startle them and scare them and trigger a behavior you did not want. So the permission way to do it is a handshake. So we put the hand out in front of us. They can see it. They grab it. They're giving us permission to come in. I do this to my dad all the time. I put my hand up and I'm like, hey, Dad. And I would wait, I would like this, and I wait for him to grab it and pull me in. And I did have to go from calling him Dad to calling him Richard, because he's like, who? He wasn't a father in his world. I'm like, okay then. Shake hands out of respect, personal space, and then you're looking for a partnership to help them with this. Now, as you start to move over, things start to change. So let's take a look at this. Let's go to the emerald, because this is your mid-stage dementia. You need to use their first name. It's not going to be honey or baby or sweetie. And even I tell my care team, don't call them Mrs. Smith, because they might be on their 4th marriage. And they don't recognize that name anymore because we've gone back in time. So your first name, the first name is the sweetest sound you will ever hear. It's the very first memory you have of you. Your mom called you that within a few minutes of you being born. So your first name is the name I'm going to call you. Okay? Not a nickname that you got when you were in your 40s on a boating trip, because you might not remember that nickname. So your first name. So we're going to use a preferred name. Your answers need to be very short. They don't need a diatribe as to where we're going and why we need to go do this, and the traffic's going to be bad if we don't get... Stop. It's time to go. Are you ready? That's it. You're going to pair the words with gestures. You're going to slow down, pause, and one step at a time. And they'll be able to keep up with you. The other thing is using a handshake greeting to note their touch, their tolerance, the hand under hand. I'm going to show you that here in a minute, why we do that. Handshake. When you hold someone's hand, you can feel if they're scared. You can feel if they feel pretty solid in what they're doing. And you're the person that's actually grounding them. You're giving them a grounding technique to squeeze you with. I'm going to show you how this works in just a second. And then what you're going to do when it comes to their movement, kind of stay on the edges of the public spaces with them and kind of gesture with energy. Kind of like, come on, we're going this way. You don't have to like do everything for them, but you're kind of staying on the edges and guiding them to what they want to do. You're not doing too much for them. When you go into an amber and a ruby, that's going to change quite a bit, because as you go into an amber, you're going to use their name again, and you're going to do a lot of smiling now. It's going to have to be big, because remember I told you there are lots of emotion, so you have to come in with lots of emotion. You have to match their energy. So you're going to come in with a great big smile. You're going to only use 2 or 3 words. That's it. No more than 2 or 3 words to communicate with them. Sounds hard, but it's not. This is where you're going to start using more and more gestures as you do stuff. You're going to get in their visual field. You're going to get permission from them to enter into their space with a handshake, and then you're going to go into immediately hand under hand. You're going to stay right with them. If you want to take something out of their hand, trade up. Don't take anything from them. It won't work. You're going to demonstrate what to do, and then you do it. Or I might say, can I take your glasses off? And I wait to see if you know what I'm talking about. Like, good, can I? And then if I get permission, then I'll do that. But if I'm reaching in towards your face without telling you what I'm going to do, what might happen? Get hit. And keep this in mind. We all have areas around us that are our personal space. And some of us don't like having people in our personal space. Some of you are really close in each other's personal space sitting there. Hopefully you're okay with that. Because it's like, dude, my daughter does not like it when we go out in public because she's like, they're in my space. I'm like, it's a seat. They're in their seat. They're just close together. She's like, they're too close to me. How many of you love sitting in lines where the person's right up on your back? And you're like, oh, dude, could you back up a few feet? We don't like that. We also don't like people coming up on us, and we do not like anybody reaching into our personal no-no zones. Now, where are those? Anything here and here, do not touch, and anything, do not touch that without my permission. But you have to care for them, so I have permission to do that, right? No, you don't. You have to ask for permission to do that. You have to ask for permission to take their clothes off, to take their shoes off, to sit them on the toilet. You just don't go doing it. You say, may I do this? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit you down now. And they might be fine with it, but showers, you need to ask for permission if you're going to help them with this stuff. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do a shower, and we'll get into that later. That'll be another class. But take a look at this Ruby. A Ruby has to offer the hand, wait for them to take you in, because they can tell you, no, I don't want to be touched right now. And if they choose not to take your hand and sit there, guess what that means? Walk away. They have the right to want to be left alone for right now. You have the right to walk away and come back and try to re-engage in a few more minutes. Because the beauty of this disease at that point, they won't remember you were there 5 minutes ago. So walk away, okay? And then when you get to the end with the pearl, it's all very, very slow. It's like you basically slow everything down like you're approaching a baby, all right? So let me walk you through this. So each gem has some skills that remain, and that's what we support. We don't focus on what they can't do. You focus on what they can do, and you keep building up their cans. You keep validating what they can do and keep encouraging them to do more. Now, this is the tricky part about dementia because they might not be able to do it in the morning, but they can in the afternoon, and they totally forget how to do all of that in the evening. So you have to be very flexible in your care. You have to be very flexible in how you decide to pull this stuff together. Keeping with that, instead of asking what's been lost, what can they still do? And then this perspective reduces the struggle. So the idea here is that caring for someone means connection. You have to have a connection with them. Now, you as a loved one have a connection that gets you in the door 50% time better than what we do when we're caring for somebody that we have to make a connection with them in the first 5 minutes. And every time we walk in there, we have to do that connection again and again and again. But you have a connection with them that you don't realize you have. They understand your energy. They can feel your energy when you walk in the room. And they might not put a name on it, but they recognize that that one belongs to me. Does that make sense? But if you keep coming at them like, you're disappointing me, this is frustrating, you know what I'm talking about, we did it yesterday, why can't you get this right? Why can't you just... What message are you sending with your energy? I want you to understand something that as a family member, this is the hardest thing I had to learn. Their behavior is not now, and in any way, shape, or form, a direct reflection of you. This is dementia. Their choosing to use profanity to describe someone is not a reflection of you. This is not your child. This is an individual who has dementia. And this dementia is winning. And all they need you to do is make a connection with them and tell them, you're not lost. I'm right here. They're allowed to have these things happen because this is the disease. What you are angry at, what you are frustrated is not the individual. It's the disease. Make sense? Because when you took that vow, you weren't thinking this. You didn't think it would actually change the whole person's personality. And in my case, the role reversal was ridiculous. I had to become my own parent's parent. Nobody put that in the handbook. And my brothers, they ran. They're like, see ya, sis. I had to tell a Marine that he could not drive his car anymore. And they all took off running. And I was like, that was fun. But his behavior was, I had to realize his behavior was not a reflection of what I was doing or not doing as a caregiver. I was not failing him as a caregiver. I was doing the best I could do with what I had to work with and the knowledge I had, and in the moment we were doing this with his disease. And there were times I would get total clarity from him, and his blue eyes would fill up with tears, and I am so sorry. And I'm like, I know you're not doing this on purpose. So you have to remember that. So let me show you how to do this. And I'm going to step over here for a second, so I'm sorry if I mess up the recording, but this is called the hand under hand technique. And this is powerful. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is that the hand that you use on your person needs to be their dominant hand. So do you know if your person is right-handed or left-handed? So let's start there. Because you bring in information from your dominant side. You test to see if the water's cold with your dominant toe. You reach for something with your dominant hand. So are we all right-handed in here? Any lefties? There's always, of course you're both lefties? What are the odds? Okay, is mom and dad lefties? Well, daggone it. Okay, so you're gonna reach with your right hand to mom and dad. So just go to their right all the time. So just start with the right. So what we're gonna do is when you ask for permission from someone to get into their space, and we're not gonna do the whole approach, we're just gonna do the hand under hand technique, but I want you to see this. It's like a handshake, but you've gotta get out of that handshake mode quickly and into what I call an arm wrestling hand movement. Some of the men will call it a bro hug because they go from a handshake into this arm wrestling movement. The reason being is people with dementia never lose their strength. They have a quick reflex to squeeze. And do you remember that reflex that the babies were born with, that when you put something in the palm of their hand, remember that? The palmar reflex, they squeeze really hard? Okay, that is intrinsic. And when you feel that pressure coming into your hand, especially your dominant hand, it sends a message to the brain that you are safe, you are solid, and you are grounded. Why do you ask to hold somebody's hand when you're scared? It's soothing. Yes?
I'm going to have to get a hand warmer.
Yeah.
Because my hand's always cold.
But you know what? He might enjoy the cool sensation knowing that that's her hand. Because my dad used to say, your hands are so cold, and he'd respond, but then he'd be like,
He says, don't touch me.
that's okay. You might have to get a hand warmer. So Kelly, would you mind showing them this? And I'm going to bring you into my space over here. So what it is we're going to do is I ask for permission to enter her personal space, and I'm going to go hand under hand with her, so my hand's going to come out. Now, what I want you guys to understand, and what's going to be really weird, is that I'm going to put my hand up by her face. Because if you go like this again, and I put my hand down here, can you see it? No, they'll be like, what are you doing? You're just sitting there staring at me. What are we doing? So then they're like, weird, and they're going to walk away. Like, she didn't want to hold my hand. She couldn't see your hand. So you're going to put it up by her face, and you're going to wait. Now, when she takes it, she's going to immediately do this little handshake, but Kelly hasn't lost her strength. And if Kelly decides to squeeze, she could crush my knuckles. And I accidentally, if I try to catch her, if she starts to stumble and fall, could squeeze, and if her knuckles have any type of arthritis in them, this is going to end badly for both of us. So what I'm going to do is, as Kelly's pushing back to pull her hand back, I'm going to come in, and we got this, see this grip right here? This is how you want to hold it. Because Kelly can squeeze all she wants to right now, and I can squeeze her right back, and what I'm doing is sending a pressure message to the brain that you're safe, you're okay. Because we're going to stay like this, but it's hand under hand. So who gets to go on top, you or her? She won the match. So think of it an arm wrestling match, and Kelly wins, so you're going underneath. So the reason you're doing this now is like, I'm going to bring her arm down.
Your hands really are cold.
I know they're cold, I'm sorry. See, you said that, and you put it in her head. But I want to get, because if I stand like this on her face to face, how does the body language, what are you doing to your person? When you go face to face on somebody like that, it feels threatening and kind of intimidating. So you're going to go from the front to their, not back here, but kind of off to her side a little bit. I'm just going to hold her hand. I'm going to talk to her. Now, here's what's really interesting. If you do this with your loved one, and you put your hand on top of theirs, where's theirs going to go? We're going to make a hand sandwich. And it's a love fest happening. But I'm not going to let go of this the whole time I'm talking to her. Because the whole time I'm talking to her, if Kelly decides to see a squirrel, we go down a rabbit trail if she's over here, and go ahead and look away, I'm going to do this little technique called a palm pump. And immediately it's like, what? What was that? And the cool part is this was ingrained in you by your mama when you were little, is when I do the palm pump, you know what she's going to do automatically back? She's going to answer it with another squeeze. So you should try this with your person. So we're going to stay like this. And I can do everything right here for Kelly from this angle with this hand using this hold. If I need Kelly to walk with me, this is my rudder. So I'm going to actually come up next to her, and I'm going to put my arm over back here on her shoulder. I'm going to hold her in with me. And if I want her to go to the right, we're going to go this way. If I want her to go to the left, don't do it because there's nothing behind you. If I want her to sit down, we're going to do it like this. If I wanted to feed Kelly, I was looking for a fork. I could put a fork in these 3 fingers, and I can do this. And Kelly thinks, who's feeding herself? She doesn't see me at all on this side. If I wanted to brush her teeth, I can hold the toothbrush, and I can just do this to help her out. And if she gets really good at it, I can just slide the toothbrush into her hand and let her finish. If she forgets what she's doing, I can just slide up and grab the toothbrush again and continue. And what's happening is her brain feels in control. Nothing's being done to her. I'm doing it with her using that technique. But as long as I have her hand and I'm holding on to her, I can communicate with her. And I'm on the dominant side of her body that takes in all of her information. Even if she has no hearing on this side, all of the information is coming in through this hand, this side, and her whole body. Make sense? Thank you, dear. That's the hand under hand technique. Now, when you approach somebody all from the positive approach, you always approach them from the front. You cannot come up behind somebody and scare them. You can't come walking in from the side. And you do not start talking at them until you're holding that hand. Does that make sense? And this is towards the mid to the end stage. In the beginning stages, you don't necessarily need to do that. But I did notice that with my father, he would be very, very clear-headed throughout the course of the day. And when the sundowners would kick in, and some of you heard me say this, I would use my essential oils. I would put some on the palm of my hand. And I'd go to grab his hand, and I'd do the hand under hand technique. And that palm was rubbing on his palm, and that oil was going into his skin. It was about 10 minutes later, everything changed. I was able to calm him down. But walking up to him saying, here, let me put this on you. Nah, he's not doing that. So I was just holding his hand, holding on to him. And then the whole time I had his hand, if he would get upset, I would squeeze really hard. He would squeeze really hard. And he'd be like, what is happening to me? I'm like, it's okay, Dad. So it's like you just have to have that grounding technique with them. Have you ever had to walk somebody through an anxiety attack or a panic attack? You ground them. Tell me 3 things you can feel, 2 things you can smell. I would do the same thing with my dad, but instead of quizzing him, I would let him feel this and squeeze it. I would let him smell the essential oils and bring him up to him, like, take a deep breath with me. I wouldn't ask him, what do you smell? I didn't do that. I would just do it for him and kind of walk him through, we're going to calm you down. So these all techniques come from the pack, and you can actually see those on her website. But behaviors, let's talk about this. Behaviors are not a bad thing, guys. You do behaviors. You have behaviors. How are you when you're hungry? Are we getting there yet? How are you when you need to go to the bathroom and you're like, how much longer is she going to talk? How are you when, like, the minister keeps going on and on? You're like, what are your behaviors? You have behaviors. Behaviors are not bad or good. What they are is an expression of an unmet need. So when you had that baby, did your baby come with a handbook that told you, here's what all these things mean? No. Could you tell when they were automatically hungry, or did you have to figure out what that sound sounded like, the cry sounded like? And then as they got older, you figured out, oh, they get like this when they're hungry, they need this, their sugar's dropping. You had to figure it out as you went with them, but I don't want you to figure this out as you go. I want you to realize that they're going to show you the same behavior for that unmet need. You need to learn what that behavior means. So talk me through this. Give me a behavior that you're like, why are they doing this? What's one that you got? Anybody? Yes.
Doesn't want to move at all.
Doesn't want to move. Wants to stay seated. Okay. So that's actually kind of an easy one. Thanks. So the reason I don't want to move is because there are a lot of what we call phantom pains going on with somebody who has dementia. There could be neuropathy, there could be an itching sensation, there could be a pinching sensation with their skin because everything is heightened and flared up. Remember I told you this is a chemical disease, so all the chemicals can get out of whack. So the reason they don't want to move is because they could be cold and it's finally warm there, or it hurts when I move and I don't want to move, or it could be a fear of falling. So there's a lot of reasons as to why I don't want to move. So the one that I get a lot of is one of the behaviors that we get in memory care is somebody will just get up and start walking towards the door. They're like, oh, they're wandering, it's a flight risk. And I'm like, slow your roll. Have you ever been in a room when you're like, I'm done with you people and I want to leave? So can they. I mean, have you ever been around somebody like, she is so annoying. How much longer do I have to listen to this? And you really wish you could get up and leave, but you don't because your front lobe tells you that's not the right thing to do. Well, guess what they don't have anymore? They don't have the front lobe to tell them the right and wrong thing. So they're just going to get up and leave. And that's okay. It doesn't mean they're exit seeking. It doesn't mean they're trying to cause. They just want to get away from you. And that's another reason you get up and walk away. Maybe you're cold and you're looking for a blanket. Maybe you're hungry and you're going to go find some food. Maybe you have to go to the bathroom and you're tired of waiting on me to wrap it up and you're just going to go find one. Wandering doesn't mean something bad. It means I'm looking for something and I'm not quite sure what it is I need, but I'll let you know when I find it. That's what they're doing. Have you ever walked into a room and forgot why you came in there? So you're wandering? No, you just have to figure out why you're in there and you'll figure it out in a minute. Let's take a look at another one. Hurt people hurt. So if your person with dementia is slapping you, trying to twist your skin and trying to pinch you, what do you think they're doing that for? They're in pain. They're in pain. And there's this phenomenon that's called phantom pain that happens with dementia. And it does not mean that the pain is not real. It's very real to their person, but they might not be able to locate it and isolate it. It could be a stomach ache that's really hurting, or a headache, or maybe it's hunger pains, or maybe it's a UTI. And that pain goes deep, and these guys can't always tell you where it is. I saw my dad actually have 2 broken toes, and he would walk on that foot like it didn't hurt, but he would hold his shoulder like he had done something to it. So he knew he was in pain, but he couldn't quite locate where it was coming from. So pain, hurt people hurt. That's why they do that. I can be thirsty and not know that I need to drink something. And you could put a cup of water down right in front of me, but that doesn't mean I'm going to drink it because I don't know that the contents of this will make my throat not be so dry. So this is where you're going to have to demonstrate it for me as to what it is you want me to do. Don't say you're thirsty, take a drink. This is a grown individual you're talking to, and that's not going to work. You're going to say, are you thirsty? I'm thirsty. And then you start drinking, and what are they going to do? They're going to copy you. Monkey see, monkey do on this one. Sometimes it can be confusion. Maybe they've got some auditory hallucinations going on in their ears, and they can't quite hear you. And then you've got the TV going over here really loud. You've got a group of people over here talking. Or maybe you thought it was a good idea to take them to their favorite restaurant. That's loud. There's a lot of noise and confusion happening in there. So rather than making a scene, they're just going to get up and walk away. Make sense? They're going to go someplace quiet. They're going to go someplace that's not quite so noisy. That's why we do that. Wandering is usually driven by restlessness or a lack of a routine of some kind. So that's why I tell people, if you get them in a routine, you usually can stave off sundowners. So a couple of things about this. Use short, simple sentences. Give one task at a time. Stay calm as much as you can. Tap out when you need to. But your tone is going to control everything. Use touch as often as you can and visual cues for what you want them to do. Visual cues are great. You can actually use visual cues in their bathroom, in their closets, on their drawers. You can say socks, underwear, pants, top, and you can put them 1, 2, 3, 4. Give them a visual clue as to how to do this. As long as they can use those clues, they'll be fine. They want to be able to do as much for themselves as possible. Link your communication strategy to what they can do. You're going to have to change the way you communicate to match the change that their brain's going through. What worked for you this morning might not work this afternoon, and you might have to be ready to flex the whole thing in 2 weeks. And that's the hardest part of caregiving because it moves really, really fast. But if you think about it, you did the same thing with the baby. You were just going in reverse. Now it's coming backwards. It's called retrogenesis. Planning ahead, get these things done. Get your advanced directives, power of attorney, financial planning. make those things happen so the transitions that are coming up go much, much smoother. And talk to your person when they're clear-headed and ask them. This was kind of weird and kind of morbid, but my father always said he wanted to be cremated for my entire life growing up. And then right at the very end, he goes, do not do that to me. Just bury me next to your mother. And I'm like, okay. So I'm glad he told me that because we had everything lined out for this. So keep asking, even if you think you've got it. So in the early stages, support, encourage independence for them. Middle stage, structured daily routine. And make sure they're safe. And you're going to have to do the safety without them knowing you're doing that. Because if they think that you're doing things for them, they're going to get really frustrated with this. And then late stages is a lot of hands-on care, focus, and comfort. For you, you're going to try to get some sleep. This might mean you might need to bring a caregiver in during the evening hours. You might have to go that direction. Don't do what I did. I had baby monitors all around the house. And I told you my parents died 11 weeks apart, but my kids were only 7 when they passed away. So I had like dad with a baby monitor, mom with one, and I had one upstairs so I could hear if the kids needed me. So sleep didn't come. But you need to be able to take breaks for yourself. You need to find support with community. So doing this is great. And you might need some counseling because as the adult daughter taking care of my dad, some of you know the story and some of you don't. My father was not a nice man to me growing up, or my brothers. He was an alcoholic and he was physically abusive. So when I had to take care of him, the role reversal made me see him in a different way. And I had to have a counselor walk me through this. She goes, you're going to meet a man you didn't know existed. Let him, meet him, go there. Don't put up your glasses of who you think he should be and how he should act. Let him be who he is and meet him where he is. And then we'll just process your issues later because this is no time to take out your issues on this version of him in front of you. And that was hard. But once I did that, it was actually kind of cool because I got to see this guy that was really funny and nice. I didn't know he could dance. Had no idea. I didn't know he could sing the way he could sing. And I had no idea he was that funny. And part of me was like, well, Dad gone. Why did this disease have to come about to finally see? But then I thought, oh no, this is the blessing. This is the blessing. This is the good part. So it was kind of fun because yes, he gave me a run for my money. And yes, sometimes he could be verbally abusive. And oh my Lord, there were days I was like, please, I don't want this anymore. But looking back, it was one of those bittersweet type of, I got to meet him. I didn't know he was like that. You will hit burnout. It will happen because your bucket can only be so full because you are pouring into this person all the time. You're doing for them and you're caring for them and you're worrying for them and you're doing all these things. You're like, what comes next? So I'm going to tell you, please take at least 5 to 10 minutes a day to try to pour back into your bucket. If that means reading, if that means just going and sitting in a room with your eyes closed and listening to your favorite music, if that means calling a friend and talk about anything but this. We're not going to talk about this. We're going to pour back into your bucket. Sometimes there becomes a reciprocal relationship with the person you're caring for. And then in the process of caring for them and pouring into them, you might get that thank you. And that's all it takes to fill your bucket back up. But do not expect that. Don't expect that because they don't realize you're doing all this for them. They have no idea because remember, they don't have dementia. They don't think that there's anything wrong with them. And then looking forward, dementia care is starting to evolve. There's a lot of research and a lot of new therapies coming around. There's a lot of techniques that we're looking at. The United States is finally starting to catch up with the rest of the world. We're about 15 years behind the rest of the world when it comes to understanding dementia and techniques. So the one thing I want you to understand, though, is all the stuff I'm sharing with you guys is coming from across the pond. I'm showing you the stuff that we now know from other parts of the world to keep you connected. Connection does not end with memory, and this is the most amazing part. They will forget your name. They will forget who you are. They will forget what they were in your world or what you were in their world. But they're going to remember how you make them feel. They're going to remember that connection. It's kind of wild because I could walk into my room and my dad would walk into my dad's room at the end of life. He never could remember my name. He goes, there's the girl that brings the sunshine. Okay. I don't know if the kids were the sunshine. I don't know if he thought I was happy. I don't know what it was. He goes, there's the girl that brings the sunshine. We no longer had a name, but that was absolutely okay because the fact that he could recognize my energy coming in, and that doesn't mean he was always nice to me. Oh, it got bad. There were days that I had to remember the promise I made to my mom that I would not take him out in his sleep. Because my mom actually died 11 weeks before my dad, and her sense of humor is, whatever you do, Lori. And I'm like, I know. Because he was rough. But there were days that were better than others, and there were moments that were better than others. And you have to remember that this is going to pass. So one of the things I want to tell you on this side of it, stop praying for this to go away. Do you know what that means? They have to pass away for this to go away. So this is the hardest thing you'll ever do. This is the hardest journey you'll ever take. But you're going to learn a lot about yourself on the other side. And you're going to learn a lot about this person in the moment. If you can do this, and if you can let go of how you think this should go, and meet them where they are, and use some of these techniques just to have a moment of connection, at the end of it, you look back and you don't have a whole lot of regrets. You're tired and you're exhausted, but it's kind of an interesting peace that comes over you. And I can't quite explain it, but it's one that I was saying goodbye to my dad in small doses every single day, but there was this other person that was in front of me. And I got to know him in a way that my brothers didn't get to. So being there and going through all of that, at the time I thought it was unfair, but looking back, I'm like, that was the coolest gift I got. Because I got to see a part of him the rest of them didn't. So takeaways. This is a journey of changing abilities. Your abilities have to change, their abilities are changing, their needs are going to change, and your needs are going to change. This is not static. You have to be able to flex and bend and stay right with this the whole time. So one of the things I would strongly suggest you do is start a caregiver's journal. Write down the techniques that you found that work today and kind of do a deep dive on why is this working with him. And it might work again tomorrow, it might work again next week, it might not work at all, but keep writing down these things and you're going to start to see a pattern of like, oh, this is how I can de-escalate this, this works, or oh, this is what triggers him. I started to see a pattern of what would trigger my dad's behaviors and how I could de-escalate it using this technique. And I couldn't see it because I was right in the midst of it. But looking back at my journal, I'm like, oh, that's what triggers that every single time. So get a journal going. Understand that this is a progressive disease. Knowing that should reduce a lot of your fears. It should start to give you a little bit more control and less stress. So I put the progressions in there for you. And caregiving is challenging, meaningful. It's both. It's a double-edged sword. It's everything, but you need to get support. Make sure you take up on that. So what's next? Next month, third Thursday, right? That's where we are, is communication that connects. So I'm going to teach you how to do this when words don't work, when words are failing you.